Tonight on Unsolved Mysteries.
He was TV's first superhero. In the 1950s, George Reeves achieved overnight stardom as a legendary Man of Steel. Then suddenly it was over. Reeves was found shot to death in his home, and ever since the question has haunted Hollywood. Who killed Superman? In Fairfield, California, a team of police officers dispatched to arrest a suspected drug dealer walked straight into an ambush. Toledo, Ohio, 1963. A tragic accident leaves 3 young children motherless. Within days, Tina Sheets is separated from her little brothers. More than 30 years later, Tina is still searching, still hoping to find them. It was one of nature's mysterious wonders, the birth of a pure white buffalo calf. Almost immediately, a small Wisconsin farm was transformed into a revered shrine for Native Americans. Is the arrival of the miracle buffalo the fulfillment of an ancient prophecy? Join me for these fascinating new stories and much more on tonight's edition of Unsolved Mysteries.
He's got some. He's giving it to the guy.
Okay, the deal's going down. It's the male white and the black Chrysler. We get 2 units to stay on him when he leaves.
February 1989. Acting on a tip, detectives from the Oakland, California Police Department staked out a liquor store parking lot.
All right, Ramirez is backing out.
Okay, Ramirez is out.
Sure enough, a suspected drug dealer named Roberto Ramirez had set up a sale. Roberto Ramirez was no ordinary dealer. He allegedly distributed cocaine from Oakland to L.A. The word was that Ramirez would do absolutely anything to turn a dime.
He would often deal out of his house, but most often meet people at different locations. He'd often have his children, 2 small children, grammar school age, carry the cocaine in backpacks and bring it to the buyers that way.
After obtaining a search warrant, police converged on Ramirez's home in Fairfield, California, some 40 miles north of Oakland.
I want everybody to make sure they've got one in the chamber and their safeties are off.
A total of 12 Oakland and Fairfield officers were in on the raid. But would Ramirez come easy, or would he get stubborn and make it tough on everybody? Officer Mark Burrell, Oakland PD.
My assignment was to pry the iron grate on the front door. The safest entry that we make is a quick entry. It gives the people inside less time to prepare, and normally we catch them in that surprise mode.
Detective Mark Smith, Fairfield PD.
My position was to cross in front of the house, and then I would cover the window and the side of the house for anybody trying to flee or any attack coming from outside the window, through the front window.
1:42 a.m. Showtime.
Police officer, search warrant, open the door! Policía, abre la puerta! Police officer, search warrant, open the door! Policía, abre la puerta!
Ramirez's silence was a challenge, loud and clear. Come and get me. At that instant, Ramirez appeared at a side window.
Everybody hold your fire!
Two officers fell. Severely injured, Detective Smith had to be dragged from the line of fire. Officer Burrell took refuge under Ramirez's window.
Hold your fire, I'm coming out! Target's clear.
I took a physical check of myself. My legs worked. I was clear thinking. My left arm didn't work. My shoulder was numb.
Go, 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 get him out, get him out!
But the other officer wasn't so lucky. Detective Smith was bleeding profusely. He was evacuated through a neighbor's house to a waiting ambulance.
Hang in there, you'll be all right. Watch the door. Go back. Go.
Roberto, sal de la casa! Sal para afuera! Roberto, sal de la casa!
Still, Ramirez wouldn't budge. Reinforcements from 8 other police departments had filled out the ranks. Now 30 heavily armed officers surrounded the house.
He's coming out. Okay, he's coming out.
After a 2-hour standoff, Roberto Ramirez finally emerged. True to form, he cowered behind his wife, 8 months pregnant, and their children ages 10 and 6.
Señora, camina adelante. Señora, camina adelante, véngase para acá.
When Ramirez came outside, there was a lot of tension. He had shot 2 of our police officers, and he had a lot of time to think about what he had done. Anything can happen. You don't know what's going through their mind at that point.
Roberto Ramirez was arrested on 2 counts of attempted murder and a laundry list of drug and assault charges. A bail bond of more than $500,000 in California real estate was enough to spring Ramirez from jail. In June of 1990, shortly before a court date, the couple packed up their children and dropped from sight. They are still on the run, but the damage they inflicted lingers on.
I was shot through the upper left arm. It was basically in and out. It severed the nerves in my left arm and left me with no feeling, although I have strength and muscle flexibility in the arm. I just don't have any feeling in it.
I remember muzzle flashes, and then my next memory, I felt like I had been punched in the stomach or hit with a baseball bat in the stomach. I can't pronounce most of the things that it damaged, but it was most of the internal organs in my abdomen. The bullet went completely through most of the intestines and the kidney, liver, and lodged. It stopped on the opposite side of my body, just under the skin in my back. I'm always going to have the scars and the pain and all from it, but it would give me some satisfaction if he was caught and was in jail serving his time and paying for what he's done.
Roberto Ramirez is 38 years old. He is a heavy-set 5'6", 210 pounds. He should be considered armed and dangerous. Last Friday, the lines at the phone center were swamped with calls from our viewers. Let's quickly go to Keely Shaye Smith to see what happened.
For the past 2 weeks, the nation's attention has been focused on the tragic murder of 27-year-old Linda Sobek. Sobek's body was found here in a shallow grave at this spot in the Angeles National Forest outside Los Angeles. Sheriff detectives now fear her murder may be connected to an unsolved homicide we profiled on an earlier broadcast. The remains of the victim in that case were also found in this area. Linda Sobek was a successful model and former Los Angeles Raiders cheerleader whose disappearance on November 16th left her family and friends frantic. This man, photographer Charles Rathbun, has claimed that Linda Sobek died in a freak car accident during a photo shoot. Then, in a state of panic, he buried her in the Angeles National Forest. Days later, with the help of Rathbun, Linda Sobek's body was recovered. But initial reports from the coroner's office seemed to indicate that Linda's injuries were not consistent with being hit by a car. Charles Rathbun has been charged with first-degree murder and is being held on $1 million bail. According to the authorities, he is now a suspect in the death of another model, Kimberly Pandelios, whose story we aired last year. March 3rd, 1993, again in the Angeles National Forest. The LA County coroner was called to investigate a possible murder site. A partial set of skeletal remains had been discovered. When the coroner checked dental records of missing persons in the Los Angeles area, he found a match. The remains were identified as those of 20-year-old Kimberly Pandelios, a model and actress who had disappeared a year before. Kimberly was married and had a 14-month-old son. On February 27, 1992, Kimberly had told her husband that she was scheduled to do an outdoor photo shoot. Authorities believe she responded to an ad in a local paper. The next day, her burned-out car was found near the Monte Cristo campground section of the Angeles National Forest. A search of the immediate area turned up no clues. Another year would pass before Kimberly's remains were found, a few miles from the spot where Linda Sobek was buried.
We do have some similarities between the death of Kimberly Pandelios and Linda Sobek. We also have a person who has come forward and indicated that they saw Kimberly Pandelios in the company of Charles Rathbun inside a Denny's restaurant shortly before her murder.
2 blonde models on photo shoots, 2 bodies found in the Angeles National Forest, 2 victims with known or reported ties to photographer Charles Rathbun. Despite the similarities, the LA County Sheriff's Department believes it is too soon to positively connect the 2 cases.
April 6, 1963. A highway under construction. A young single mother hurrying home to her 3 small children. In the blink of an eye, disaster. "26-year-old Patricia Lamarand of Toledo, Ohio, was killed instantly. A few miles away, Patricia's children waited patiently and unknowingly at the home of their great-aunt.
Accident investigators believe she lost control of the car along a section of the highway that has been under construction.
That evening, the flickering images on the television brought the tragedy home.
Look, there's Mom's car on TV.
Suddenly, they were motherless. Patricia's 1-year-old son, Craig, nicknamed Chipper, 2-year-old Christopher, Chrissy for short, and 4-year-old Tina.
The day before was my brother Chrissy's 2nd birthday, and I remember the birthday cake and the people at the party. And my next memory goes immediately to my aunt on the phone crying.
Tina had only the vaguest notion that something terrible had happened. She had no idea that she and her brothers were about to be split up forever. Chrissy and Chipper were eventually handed over to foster care. Tina was uprooted as well. Lonely and confused, she left her great-aunt's home to live with her grandparents.
I do remember once my grandparents took custody of me that I was very upset and could not understand why my mother and my brothers were gone. I felt as though I was bad, that I had done something terribly awful for all this to happen to me, and for everybody to have been taken from me. As I grew up, I missed not having Chrissy and Chipper there. I knew that they were somewhere and that I wanted to be with them, but And it was out of my control as to where any of us went. And the older I got, the more I knew I had the ability to find them.
Tina started looking when she was 16.
What is it? It's the address of the foster home where Chrissy and Chipper were taken.
Her great-aunt gave her the first clues.
This is where they live? No, that's the place where they were taken. I don't know what happened to them after that.
Tina found the house, only to learn that Chrissy and Chipper's foster parents had moved. She then went door to door, hoping the neighbors could help.
Hello.
Hi, I'm trying to locate a family that used to take in foster kids. I believe they lived next door to you about 15 years ago.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there was a family that they had lots of foster kids over there, yeah.
I'm trying to find my two brothers. Their names were Chipper and Chrissy, and I believe they lived with her for a while.
I remember those two, yes. They're cute little boys, yeah.
You remember them?
Oh, I remember. It was a long time ago, though. Sindel, her name was Doris Sindel.
Doris Sindel?
Yes. I think she's a nurse.
Tina was elated. She finally had a name. She was only a phone call away from locating her long-lost brothers. She never imagined it would take another 8 years to track down Doris Sindel and make that call.
Thank you, you too.
When I first told her who I was, I asked her if she ever lived in Toledo, and she said yes. And I asked her if she was ever a foster parent, and she said yes. And I told her I believed that she had fostered my brothers, and she said, "My babies, Chrissy and Chipper," and I nearly fell off of my chair.
Doris had mothered Chrissy and Chipper for almost 2 years. She loved them as her own until they were adopted by a couple from Michigan.
Tina, I've been waiting for you, hon.
Tina visited Doris as soon as she could. She wanted to hear every detail.
This was taken at Deer Park.
Doris gave Tina a glimpse into the life she might have shared with her brothers.
The deer, you see it there. In this picture,
Doris had saved everything, the home movies, the photographs, even the boys' tiny bow ties.
so cute. These are the actual ties. When I handed her the bow ties, I had no intentions of letting her keep those bow ties. But I didn't have the heart to take them back because she looked with them with such loving care, and she couldn't speak. She cried.
How sweet. It just felt as they had actually worn these. I was that much closer to them. I just wanted to be able to be with them.
Coming up, one of Hollywood's most intriguing mysteries. Was George Reeves, TV Superman, killed by an irate husband? But first, we'll take you to Wisconsin, where the birth of a rare white buffalo calf turned a small farm into a spiritual mecca. "150 years ago, the buffalo ruled the Western Plains, 30 million strong, proud masters of a vast, uncharted land. But today, the Great Plains are virtually empty. Just 130,000 of those majestic creatures remain. Most are on ranches or farms, such as this one in Janesville, Wisconsin. Dave Hyder and his wife Valerie have been breeding buffalo since 1989. But nothing could have prepared Dave for the remarkable events of August 20th, 1994. That morning, he went out to check on a pregnant cow. What he discovered would change his life and his farm forever.
Well, I headed out into the pasture trying to find this cow, and I found her on the eastmost corner of the pasture. The cow stood up and the calf stood up, and she was in the shade, and the calf looked funny colored, real strange colored, like a gray. The cow walked out into the sunlight, and the calf followed her. I could not believe what I was looking at. She was as white could be, as white as snow.
It was nature at its most glorious and unpredictable. The odds were 1 in 10 million, a white non-albino buffalo calf. Fittingly, the hiders named her Miracle. As news of the extraordinary calf spread, the hiders were besieged by members of the Lakota Sioux Nation. To the Lakotas, Miracle was a profound gift, the fulfillment of an ancient prophecy. Almost overnight, the farm was transformed into a religious shrine.
They came from all over the world here. They would call from all over the world. We had telephone calls every 3 minutes from 6:30 in the morning to 11:30 at night.
At one period, we had 2,300 people through our driveway in a 5-hour length of time. And it was wall-to-wall people constantly. It was like a wave that never ended.
Initially, the hiders were confounded by all the commotion. But as a flood tide of visitors continued, Dave and Valerie soon learned the full significance of the white buffalo calf. This rare animal is at the heart of a hallowed legend handed down by the Lakota Sioux for some 600 years. Arvil Looking Horse of the Cheyenne River Reservation is a spiritual leader of the Lakota Nation. He is responsible for passing on the story of the white buffalo calf to the next generation.
There was a time when the white buffalo calf woman, she came to the people 19 generations ago. And
according to the legend, 2 scouts were sent out during a great famine to search for the buffalo herd. As they crested one rise, they spied a lone white buffalo calf. It was an amazing sight. The braves watched in awe as the calf magically transformed into a beautiful young maiden. Four days later, the white buffalo calf woman appeared again to the entire tribe. She bore a sacred pipe and a code of laws as important to the Lakota as the 10 Commandments are to Western religions. The maiden promised that she would return once more in 600 years as a white buffalo calf to usher in a period of peace and harmony.
I was told 19 generations ago, she came when the cherries are deepest red or black, and that's would be the last week in August, and that's when 19 generations later, this white buffalo calf is being born.
But if Miracle is the reincarnation of the white buffalo calf woman, why is she here now? The Lakota believe her return is tied to an ancient prophecy.
In the next 5 years, she's going to show us natural disaster and man-made disaster. It's going to be evil killing evil.
Floyd Hand believes it will begin with great fires. Floods will follow, as well as earthquakes, typhoons, and man-made disasters, pollution and war. The prophecy states the devastation will continue for a full 5 years. But as the onslaught wanes, harmony will prevail, followed by an unprecedented period of world peace.
There is hope. There's not going to be no end of the world. It's just that we've got to put our minds together as concerning our Mother Earth.
Perhaps not surprisingly, offers to buy the buffalo calf come in daily from such diverse people as media mogul Ted Turner and rock star Ted Nugent.
She's not for sale. She will not leave here. You have to be here and see the effect that this calf has on people, how it changes their lives. Something that is as sacred and holy as what that calf is, you can't put a price on it. That calf was sent here for us to be like a caretaker to it, for all people to come see.
Catholics, Protestants, they've all been here. You'll see rosaries, you'll see everything on the gate, from anything that is very important to them, they will leave on the gate. A lady came to baptize her baby. She put her baby's hand through the fence and held it there, and the calf come right up and put her head right under the baby's hand and stayed there through the whole little ceremony. And when she was all done, she just backed off and she pulled the baby's hand back, and it was just unbelievable.
Unbelievable indeed. Apparently, the miracle calf has already fulfilled one portion of the prophecy, changing colors 4 times, from white to black to red and now yellow.
This is the world-renowned white buffalo, which is not so white anymore.
Yeah. And she's one of these 4. Do you think you can pick her out?
Ladies and gentlemen, there is the star.
I've seen people from all over the world come here. And when they walk away, there's something different about them, which is spiritual awakening. But the message she brought to us is the time has come for us to live through peace, love, and harmony.
Next, authorities need your help to track down a man accused of rape. This story is about a rape survivor. Call her Deidre. Despite her intense trauma, Deidre refuses to let her living nightmare destroy her. She wants to fight back by finding the man who raped her and putting him behind bars. But she cannot do it alone. She needs your help. For years, Deidre lived on New York City's fashionable Upper East Side. It is normally a very expensive area, but Deidre had lucked into a rent-stabilized apartment.
See you soon.
Eventually, however, the building was slated to be torn down. As leases ran out, the tenants moved. By early 1992, Deidre was the only tenant left, the only person living in the building, which was badly in need of repair. In the end, it was one of those repairs, a leaky ceiling, that led Deidre to disaster.
Yes, it's me again. Sorry, it's just a mess today. We gotta get it fixed.
The landlord agreed to send someone. He hired a 31-year-old handyman named David Gause.
When he was first hired, it didn't seem strange at all. It was just somebody else coming in to do some work in the building, that's all.
After Gause fixed the ceiling, the landlord gave him more work. While Gause did the repairs, he lived temporarily in a basement apartment.
One night, late at night, I smelled smoke downstairs, and I went running down.
David, are you down there? I smell smoke.
Oh, no. I was just cooking soup in a can.
Oh, are you crazy? You could burn the place down.
No, I was just...
I said, if you're ever going to cook again, why don't you come up and ask me if you can borrow a pan, because I really don't want the building to burn down.
March 29th, 1992, 9:30 a.m.
Who is it? David. Oh, David. I thought you were coming up yesterday to paint the ceiling.
I had other things to do. I couldn't make it. I came up to borrow a frying pan.
Oh, okay, just a second. Here you go. Hey, what are you doing? It's a joke!
No, it's no joke!
After he raped me, it seemed like he was calmer, but then he got a crazy look in his eye again, and he took an ice pick out of his pocket. I thought for sure that he was going to kill me.
Oh.
Deidre was willing to try anything to save her life. She hit on a desperate ploy.
No, listen, you don't understand. Wait, no, we could be together.
I made him believe that he was my boyfriend. It totally disarmed him. He got really confused about the whole thing.
Here, I have this other money. Take this
Really?
too. Yes, go find those guys. Pay them the money and come back. We'll go for breakfast. We'll be together.
The ploy worked. Gause claimed he needed money to pay a debt. Deidre gave him all she had. Deidre's call to 911 brought an immediate response.
Calm down, I'm coming right up.
But David Gause was long gone. At the police station, detectives ran a background check on Gause. It quickly turned up a long list of previous arrests and felony convictions, including armed robbery, assault, and grand larceny.
Okay, Deidre, now what we're gonna do is I'm gonna show you a series of 6 pictures, and let me know if you recognize anybody, okay?
Okay.
It's him.
After we identified David Gause as the person who raped Deidre, I also contacted other police departments and learned that David Gause was also wanted for a rape that occurred in Nassau County, Long Island. In that rape, he raped an acquaintance of his, and a warrant was issued for his arrest.
David Gause has not been seen in 3.5 years. The police currently have no leads, but they fear Gause will rape again.
Rape is a crime that is usually repeated until they're caught and put away. So there's no doubt in my mind, if David Gause is not caught, that he will go on doing what he's used to doing, raping women.
It's been 3.5 years and it still affects my life. I don't trust anybody. There's no enjoyment left. I know that he's raping other women, and I know that other lives are being destroyed. I'd like to see him off the streets. I'd like to see him put away forever.
When we return, the shooting death of television actor George Reeves still has many researchers wondering, who killed Superman?
Faster than a speeding bullet. More powerful than a locomotive. Able to leap tall buildings at a single bound. Look, up in the sky, it's a bird. It's a plane. It's Superman. Yes, it's Superman.
In the 1950s, millions of TV viewers across America knew actor George Reeves as Superman, the Man of Steel, both indestructible and invincible.
Then steel in his bare hands.
Then came June 16th, 1959. At about 1:30 a.m., Los Angeles police raced to George Reeves' fashionable Hollywood Hills home. Upstairs, they found George Reeves sprawled across his bed. He had died from a single gunshot wound to his right temple. Police quickly ruled Reeves' death a suicide. Yet within a week, some people began to question that ruling. It was the beginning of a controversy which continues to this day.
It doesn't make sense that George Reeves committed suicide because the evidence doesn't support that.
I don't believe that George Reeves killed himself. I believe that he was murdered.
Who killed Superman? For nearly 4 decades, that mystery has tantalized and fascinated Hollywood. Those who believe George Reeves met with foul play say a woman was behind it. But what woman? At the time of his death, Reeves was at the vortex of a twisted double love triangle, which would have shocked his many loyal fans. In 1952, George Reeves became an overnight star as Superman. Just 4 years earlier, he had been forced to eke out a living by digging septic tanks. One of his Superman co-stars was Jack Larson, who played Jimmy Olsen.
I didn't know what I was getting into. My presumption, as I'm sure George's was, no one will probably ever see this. And we became famous. I mean, we became hot, and I was just a guy around New York who some people would say, hey, didn't I see you in the Alcoa, or, you know, you'd be at a lunch counter, and suddenly I was Jimmy Olsen.
Away from the cameras, in his love life at least, Reeves bore little resemblance to the TV superhero. His steady girlfriend was Toni Mannix, a former Ziegfeld showgirl, 8 years his senior. Toni, however, was a married woman. Her husband, Eddie Mannix, had been vice president of MGM and was still a powerful force in Hollywood. No one knows why, but Mannix encouraged his wife's involvement with Reeves.
The relationship between George and Toni was a very open relationship. She took care of George very well. The car that he drove was bought by Toni, and the house that he lived in was Toni's house. But something happened in late '58 that broke that relationship off.
Toni Mannix was devastated by the breakup, but George moved on quickly. He soon began spending his time with Lenore Lemon, a member of the New York Cafe Society, much younger and much wilder than Toni Mannix.
She had a reputation, a bad reputation, for fights in clubs in New York. I think George liked the excitement that he found with her.
Another George?
Yes, please, dear.
On the night George Reeves died, his life was not as perfect as it might have appeared. Although he pampered Lenore and they were reportedly engaged, Reeves could not keep up the lavish lifestyle he had enjoyed with Toni. Cut off from her money, the bills were piling up. Moreover, Reeves hadn't filmed a new episode of Superman in 2 years.
It was the perfume.
I think George Reeves was going through a midlife crisis. There are reports that George was planning to marry Lenore Lemon. I don't think he was going to do that, and that's where I think an argument came up.
By midnight, only Lenore Lemon and writer Robert Condon remained at the house with Reeves. Shortly thereafter, 2 neighbors stopped by looking for a party.
Oh, this is George Reeves. This is William Bliss.
The bar is closed.
George.
I'm sorry.
According to Jim Note, Lenore became increasingly agitated about the way Reeves treated the guests.
George, look what you've done.
Fine.
I think this made Lenore Lemon very angry that he treated a friend like that. She went up, and I think an argument started. I think George at that time told her that he had no plans to marry her, and that she became very angry and pulled out a gun. And I don't think on purpose, but I think accidentally shot George.
And exactly what did you hear?
Well, we were downstairs, and we heard a shot. We went upstairs.
Half an hour passed before the police were notified. Jim Nolt believes the partygoers needed time to come up with a consistent story.
Carol was with William.
When questioned, everyone said Reeves had been alone in his bedroom and that he had shot himself.
No, he was up there alone.
Immediately, the police ruled Reeves' death a suicide, despite some rather curious evidence. A .30 caliber Luger pistol lay on the floor between Reeves' legs, but there were no fingerprints on the gun.
Bullets in the ceiling.
The bullet had passed through Reeves' skull and lodged in the ceiling above his bed. And strangely, the fatal shell casing was found underneath Reeves' body.
If George Reeves had committed suicide and held the gun to his head, the bullet casing would have been expelled away from his body, not in back of his body where he would have fallen on it. There were no powder burns in his hands. There were no powder burns in his head, which means that the gun was held far enough away from his head that there weren't any powder burns. Somebody else pulled that trigger.
But was Lenore Lemon that somebody else? Writer and researcher Michael Haid has an even darker theory. He believes that George Reeves' death was a direct result of his illicit affair with Toni Mannix and her husband Eddie's anger over Reeves ending it.
I believe that the man was murdered. I believe that Eddie Mannix, tired of listening to his wife grieve and obsess over George Reeves, decided that it was time to take some action. It was my understanding that George's house was pretty much an open house, and I think it was relatively easy for Eddie Mannix to send someone over to the house during the course of a party that may have been going on, and Eddie Mannix had the guy killed.
Hey, Georgie boy. Who are you?
George?
that Eddie Mannix, by the end of the 50s, who was retiring, would endanger his life and the end of his life by having something nefarious done to George is, to my mind, ludicrous.
But what about the physical evidence? No fingerprints on the gun, the shell casing underneath Reeves' body, the lack of powder burns on his hands or head.
The absence of powder burns raises a question in a lot of people's minds because most people have a misconception about powder burns. They believe that powder burns happen when a weapon is placed up against the skin. That's not the case. When a weapon is placed against the skin, the powder goes into the wound and does not burn the outside of the skin. The police found no evidence of fingerprints on the weapon. George was a gun collector, and he kept his weapons well oiled. Well, a thick coat of oil won't hold fingerprints any more than water will.
Okay, take him.
Perhaps the most difficult fact to explain is how the shell casing got under the body.
The .30 caliber Luger is designed to eject the shell upwards and away from the shooter. Most people think that couldn't put the shell behind him. However, if the gun was fired this way, it would eject the shell downward, for example.
According to the autopsy report, the bullet entered Reeves' head about 1 inch above his right ear. It exited about 1 3/4 of an inch above the left ear, then lodged in the ceiling. The bullet trajectory suggests that Reeves' head was tilted when the gun was fired. Consequently, he may have held the gun in an odd position.
If George had held the gun not this way, but in this way, the more comfortable and natural position, he would have ejected the shell directly behind him and onto the bed.
But why would Superman kill himself? Jack Larson believes that Reeves was despondent over his lack of work.
He couldn't get a job, I couldn't get a job. In the United States, I was too typed, as Jimmy was absolutely typed, nobody wanted me to work at all. I don't know what happened to George. I only had a bow tie and a sweater to worry about. George had the Superman outfit. So I was depressed, and I accepted instantly that he had committed suicide.
There is evidence to support all three theories about his death. I think there is evidence to support suicide. There is evidence to support a tragic accident. And there is evidence to support murder. The only people who know how George Reeves died are no longer with us.
Yes, it's Superman, strange visitor from another...
Who killed Superman? Was George Reeves' death the result of a secretive and perilous love triangle? Or was he the victim of a depression so profound that he took his own life? Perhaps we will never know. Perhaps this is one case destined to remain an unsolved mystery.
Never-ending battle for truth, justice, and the American way.
Join me again this Friday at our regular time for an all-new edition of Unsolved Mysteries.